Be a holy priesthood to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. The older that you grow, you know fewer and fewer people in this world. The older you grow, the fewer contemporaries that you have. The older you grow, the fewer people there are around who have shared most of your life with you. Because of this, the older you get, the more you look ahead to the future. There is a sharp difference between the elderly and young people in this regard. After all, young people who at times do get caught up with the present moment certainly do look ahead to the future, but in a different way than those who are older. We might think, for example, about those graduating this month, or being promoted from grade school to high school, or engaged couples who anticipate in just a few weeks becoming husband and wife, or those 20 men of our diocese preparing to be ordained deacons and priests, including from our parish. All of these young people look ahead to the future with anticipation, to the opportunities of high school, to the independence of college, to the paycheck that comes with a job, to the beauty of a shared life with one's spouse or ordained ministry. But all of those future realities that young people dream about are realities within this world here below. All of them are earthly opportunities, you might say. Then, on the other hand, those who are elderly also look to the future, but to the future that lies beyond the threshold of death, already passed by so many of those whom they've known. You might call this the opportunity of heaven. Regardless of whether you are young or old or somewhere in between, during these latter weeks of Easter, Jesus wants you to focus on heaven. After all, that's where he's headed, and he wants you to follow him there. When we're young, our proximate future, what lies immediately before us, might distract us from thinking about heaven very much. On the other hand, when we're older, we might lose hope and wonder why our delay in leaving this world is so long. But Jesus, on the verge of his own ascension to the Father's right hand in heaven, speaks to our concerns. Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life." Jesus speaks these words in order to turn your gaze toward heaven. As St. John the Evangelist relates these words of Jesus to his disciples, which he spoke at the Last Supper, two of Jesus' disciples speak out. Maybe you might find that you can relate to each of these two disciples in turn. The first of them is the Apostle Thomas, often called Doubting Thomas. Usually we think of that name, Doubting Thomas, in connection to Thomas doubting his fellow apostles when they tell him that they've seen the risen Lord. On that occasion, Thomas is doubting the apostles, not Jesus directly. When Jesus does appear to Thomas, the apostle no longer doubts, but instead cries out, "My Lord and my God." But today we hear Thomas express doubt about Jesus himself, and in two ways. Thomas doubts Jesus first when he complains that we do not know where you are going. In other words, he's expressing doubt about Jesus as a leader, because a good leader makes sure that his followers know their goal so that they can focus on it. But Thomas does not stop there. His second expression of doubt concerns the means by which to reach the goal. He asks, "How can we know the way?" And you have to admit here that Thomas does have a certain sort of point. If you do not know where you're headed, how can you know the way to get there? Only a fool begins a journey without knowing where he's headed. If he doesn't know the goal, then every step that he takes is as likely to take him farther away from his goal than it is to take him closer. Many people in our culture today feel as if they're not really going anywhere in life. Neither the way nor the goal of their life seems to amount to much. Earthly goals, after so many decades, seem not to lead to the sort of accomplishment that they had hoped for, and the goal of heaven seems very far away. So the doubter asks, what's the connection between earth and heaven? as far as reaching the goal of heaven? Is our time on earth one of simple waiting, just hoping that we don't commit the mortal sin that will close the doors of heaven to us forever? That's a very negative view of the spiritual life, that following Jesus is defined by what we don't do. This is where we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the Apostle Philip, the other one to respond to Jesus in today's gospel. The Apostle Philip hears Jesus' response to Thomas, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Jesus is making it plain that the life of the Father is what heaven is all about. When Jesus ascends, he ascends to the right hand of the Father. So our lives as Christians on this earth are a journey towards God the Father, a journey we make through God the Father's only begotten Son. Philip, for his part, responds with a simple request. "Master, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Philip seems simply to be saying that he doesn't even want to ask for the Father's eternal embrace in heaven. For Philip, just to be shown a glimpse of the Father while on earth is enough for him. But if Philip thought that he was being humble in making this request, Jesus has other ideas. Jesus responds by rhetorically asking, "Have I been with you for so long, and you still do not know me, Philip? How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me?" You can almost imagine Philip wide-eyed at Jesus' response, thinking that he had only made a very simple request. But Jesus, for his part, is making clear that following him is no simple matter. Jesus expands on his relationship with God the Father. Jesus explains to us that his own words and works are not done on his own. The Father and the Son are one, and they are one to such perfection that their words and works are one. This is a profound point that we could spend a lot of time reflecting on, but it's not Jesus' final point or even his strongest point in today's gospel passage. Jesus proclaims, "Amen, amen, I say to you, whoever believes in me will do the works that I do, and will do greater ones than these, because I am going to the Father." Those words with which Jesus introduces his teaching ought to be a red flag to us. "Amen, amen, I say to you." Jesus uses this phrase 50 times over the course of St. John's account of the Gospel. Every time it's meant to be a signal for our ears to perk up. In today's Gospel passage, this phrase introduces the point that brings together everything Jesus has been explaining to his disciples, including Thomas and Philip and yourself. "Amen, amen, I say to you, whoever believes in me will do the works I do, and will do greater ones than these, because I am going to the Father." Now, those words of Jesus are almost scandalous. How can we, poor simple sinners, do greater works than Jesus Christ, the Son of God? The answer is that the Easter season is not just about Jesus rising from the dead. The Easter season is also about Jesus rising to the right hand of the Father in heaven. And that ascension of Jesus makes it possible for those greater works to be worked by us, Jesus' followers. Whether it's the work of one's vocation to marriage or consecrated life or holy orders, or whether it's dedication in old age to an intense life of prayer and the acceptance of suffering, each and every Christian finds strength in the person of Jesus Christ, who animates us as the members of his mystical body on earth. Jesus is the only way that leads to the embrace of God the Father in heaven. If you remain close to Jesus, you are already on the way.